30 years ago, we never would have imagined being here talking about this. We went from childhood games to energetic alignment. By doing the work, we created better versions of ourselves. Join us, two women sharing their intimate journal entries on their path to consciousness. Get in here, get in here, get in here. Trust. If I could title the season that I'm currently in as it relates to my awareness journey, it would be trust. I'm at that point where I'm receiving clear visions from God in the form of dreams and gut instincts. A good friend of mine recently told me that I didn't know what was going on in the world. Well, her exact words were, "Bitch, why you don't ever know what's going on?" But that's because when you're in your trusting season, you become your own media outlet. If I'm too preoccupied with everyone else's headline story, then it becomes harder to hear the instructions given to me about my own. The relationship that I'm building with myself is much more important in my growth and fulfillment. My recent dream that helped me realize this season that I was in was one in which my car was falling off a cliff into the ocean. In that moment, when it hit the water, everything went silent. The passengers in the car got out safely, but left me behind as if they were instructed to do so. I let go of fear and asked, "What's next?" And that's how he affirmed for me the step-by-step instructions on trusting the process and knowing that God's got me. Breathe, get quiet, let go, and trust. Trust. I didn't meet trust until I met myself. Not until I did the work did I really get to know myself. Once I knew myself, I was able to love myself, and thus I finally trusted myself. And when you can trust yourself, you can trust in a higher power which operates in your life, which meant I started to trust my environment. I am the center of my universe, which means I can trust any and everything in it. I can trust me, I can trust the people in my world, and I can trust absolutely everything in my life. Trust is faith, trust is freedom. Get in here, get in here, get in here, y'all. Episode 7 is all about trust.
Yes.
Akilah, okay, we're going to jump in really quickly because what I appreciated about your journal entry was saying that like at this time in my life, right? You said like at this time in my life and where I am right now, that you feel like trust has been a big part of your development and your awareness and your consciousness. Talk about that.
So now I feel like everybody has a season, right? I think we all go through seasons. And so what I've just started doing in my journey of awareness is labeling my seasons, because that's like my awareness mechanism or my awareness measurement. I went through my letting go season. I went through my breakthrough season. I went through, just other hard to deal with seasons. And I feel like now I'm on the other side of those moments where it was hard for me. I'm on the side of bliss, right? So we talked about, I've shared with you before, I went through my season of 1,000 yeses. I would say yes to anything. That's how we kind of got started with this, right? So now I feel like I am in my trusting season. And to be honest, I also think it is one in which I'm on the end of the journey. Like not the end, because I feel like we always continue to learn about ourselves, but I'm closer to this state where I can just surrender like completely. And trust for me is on that spectrum, right? So I mean, I don't really know how to describe it. I don't know, but I do know how I got here. But that's because I took those other steps to get here. Trust. It wasn't hard. Now, what I think trust helps me do is I don't get mad anymore. That's what trust looks like for me in this new season, because I've adopted the saying, just trust that the universe is, bringing everything to you in its own timing. So
that just helps me. I never get mad. Like, what am I mad for? If I don't get something, or if something doesn't work out for me, it's only because it wasn't meant to be in that moment. I know it's coming,
Right.
but the timing of it just isn't right. So that's kind of one of those other noticeable observations about your trust season. You'll kind of see yourself not getting mad anymore, and kind of letting go, and surrendering.
I think I still get mad sometimes.
Well, obviously, yes, I get mad at my kids all the time.
Yeah, no, but it brings up the point of polarity, right? Because there
Mm,
is trust on one spectrum of it, but the exact opposite, I believe, is fear, right? And when
yes.
you're in fear and or anxious or worried all the time, it's hard to have trust. And I think trust also goes hand in hand with faith,
Yeah.
right? Like if you are trusting something, you have faith that it is going to be okay.
Hmm.
So for me on that journey, I didn't realize that I was living in fear until I had actually gotten out of it because
Right.
it had become so normal. It had become normal for me to wake up and be anxious. It had become normal for there
Mm,
to be butterflies in my stomach just because there were so many things that one, I wasn't living in my truth. I hadn't done any of the shadow work yet to
right.
make sure that like I was like leading with my purpose and who I am because I did not know who I was really, right? So I was making decisions out of fear. And as you said, like as I went on this journey and I did the work, which for me, I don't get to trust without doing the work.
Hmm.
And I know everybody says, do the work, do the shadow work. And what is that? And everyone's shadow work is different because everyone's traumas and pains are different. But it literally is getting in touch with the parts of you that you try to avoid.
Yeah.
It's looking at the parts of you where you make decisions, especially when you know you shouldn't be making them, but you make them anyway, or you're like, hey, I have this bad habit, but I keep doing it. Why I can do it? Somewhere there's a shadow in play there, right? So when I had to get quiet, for me, it was removing all outside influences, which meant that I had to go into that hermit mode and I had to focus on just me, which meant journaling, meditation, exercising, being like thinking about the food that I ate, everything I had to do as part of my shadow work. It actually started with food, which is so funny when I think about it because I was unhappily married. I had two children who were really young, and I ended up doing a vegan challenge.
Hmm.
And I did feel really good after the vegan challenge. But what I realize now in retrospect, because that was like almost 7 years ago, it was the only thing in my life that I had control of. I had two kids who were toddlers who they ran the day until they went to
Yeah.
sleep. I was unhappily married. I had given up my career to take care of my kids, so I had taken away choices for me to be able to make really. So for me, when I chose to be vegan, I was like, ooh, I can control what I can put in my body. And then that's what I started sharing on Instagram at the time. And that's kind of like how the whole like Instagram following and all that kind of like happened because I needed something. I needed something to make me feel validated. And at that time, being an influence on Instagram at least made me validated because people are like, oh, I appreciate you sharing your journey. This
Hmm.
inspired me. And that's all I had at that time, which is why I feel like now on the opposite side of it, where I have trust and I know who I am, I have no interest in being an influencer anymore. I do
Yeah.
miss helping people and helping inspire them, but I don't miss that because I don't need the validation because I had the validation myself because I did the work to find out who I was. I did the shadow work, the things that were, again, I feel like shame and guilt, whatever things in the back of your head and the back of your mind and the bottom of your heart that calls you shame and guilt are the things that you need to be focusing on so that you can get to a level of trust.
Yeah. I think also when we talk about this today, a lot of what we talk about is kind of our journey, right? Your self-care and going through that. But I think trust also has a lot to do with relationships and other people. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like the way you're brought up as a child is going to kind of put you on this path of, do I trust or do I not? Like, is everything, blocking me? Is everything out to get me? Just based on how you were raised. And it's unfortunate, but it's it's everybody. And we
Yeah.
understand that. And so when you talk about, inspiring, I feel like trust and inspiration kind of need to be together, right? We want to inspire everybody else to trust in themselves, because this is such an important topic to everything else in your journey to self-awareness and that level of consciousness that you want to get to. So, I'm all for inspiring people, but it's gonna be a long road or a hard journey if you had one of those upbringings where you couldn't trust your parents, you couldn't trust your siblings, you couldn't trust teachers, and the way you were kind of molded and the foundation that you come from is definitely going to affect this season of trust for you, unless you did the work before,
Right.
right? And
Right.
I kind of got rid of I brought those to the forefront. Not that I got rid of them. I didn't sweep them under the rug. I brought them to the forefront. If I didn't trust, something that my father did, or I felt like he didn't trust me, I'm like, okay, well, let's dig into this, right? So you got to do the shadow work in that respect to get you to a level of surrender and bliss, and I'm on
Yeah.
my way.
Yeah.
Like
You,
something's up next for me.
yeah. And when you think about trust, and like you said, like, depends on how you were brought up, or
Hmm.
if you have found yourself in multiple relationships where you
Right.
cannot be they're not trustworthy, or you find yourself like, why am I always, being cheated on, or whatever the case is. That's obviously a trust wound, right? And you were playing that out in your life over and over. But there also comes a point where, especially in shadow work, where we can no longer blame our upbringing. When you're like an
Right.
adolescent, when you're a teen, you're still living under your parents' roof, that's one thing. But when you now have become an adult and you have to take full responsibility for yourself, you cannot blame anyone else for you sitting in that other than yourself. And I know that can be like a hard pill to swallow, but eventually you have to take responsibility for your own healing. It is no longer your
Absolutely.
parents. After you're out of their house and you're taking care of yourself, it's no longer your parents, even if they were the ones that created the groundwork for your ability to not trust people or to not have faith or all of these things. It is still your responsibility as an adult to figure that out and
Yeah.
undo the damage. And
You got to
I
do the
think that,
work.
what'd you say?
You got to do the work.
You got to do the work, right? Yeah. But, trust for me, and like I said it in my journal, it wasn't until I really got to know myself that I could trust myself. And it really, and I read this book by Iyanla Vanzant a few years ago, and it was called Trust. But she went through the four essential or principles for trust. And the first one is trust in self, right? If you cannot trust yourself, there is no way that you can trust someone else. And then once you trust in yourself, it was trust in God. And then
Hmm.
it was trust in others, and then trust in life. And I kind of really feel like that's exactly how it happens. When you can trust yourself to make responsible decisions, or that you can trust your intuition, or you can trust the messages or the insights that you're getting, you start to trust yourself. And then you
Yeah.
can trust others, or you can trust your higher power because it's operating in your life. Because I do think when you get to know yourself, you have to know that something is much bigger at play here,
Hmm.
right? And it is operating in your life. But then you can have trust in others. I now believe, though I'm single, right? And I had said this in a previous episode, I felt like I have been dating the same man over and over, just in a different body.
Right.
I don't believe that that will be the next man that I attract, because I am not the person who was attracting that same wounded individual because I was wounded.
Right.
Because I have healed my wounds, I expect and trust that I am attracting someone who has either also done the work, healed their wounds, and who is coming to this relationship whole. And
Yeah.
that's how I look at anything. I go and get in the car and take a drive. I trust that the other people on the road are going to be responsible too. I trust that when I drop my children off, that they are going to be okay and I'm going to pick them back up. It's like
Hmm.
you find ways to trust, and you see trust in all ways where, some people are like, oh, I have people in my life who can be really anxious about everything and be like, but what about? And I'd be like, I have to trust. I cannot live in fear. I really can't. Because it also
Yeah.
fear, and I think also made me sick, physically
It
sick,
can. It
holding on to
definitely
that
can.
fear and anxiety and worry.
Yeah. I read a quote this week, and it said, "It's harder to trust people than it is to love them." And I was like,
Mm.
"Ooh, That is so true. It
Yeah.
is hard. Again, the way you kind of thought about trust in your upbringing or your young adult life, the way you thought about trust is it's going to be hard. Like, I don't know how to explain this, and I know we need to get over it, and I'm not blaming anything, but I'm just saying you have to recognize the the works that you need to do to get past the blame or whatever. But we say I love you to anybody and everybody, right? we,
Mhm.
we have no issues doing that. But when it comes to trusting someone with our hearts, trusting someone with our money, with our secrets, you know, we don't do that as freely as we do love.
Mhm.
And I feel like maybe if we kind of give them the same kind of equilibrium status, love and trust, it'll kind of push the needle. It'll push you a little bit further to fulfilling your desires or getting those things that you want very easily and naturally. You don't have to work so hard for it all the time. So um, for me, trust is going to be key in kind of taking that next step,
Mhm.
and walking past fear as well. You mentioned fear. I feel like fear and trust are the opposites of each other,
Mhm.
right? Like, if you don't trust in something, then you're afraid of it. You
Right.
know, you
Absolutely.
you don't want to walk into it. But sometimes that's exactly what you need to do. Like, you need to have the strongest belief system in you to get to this level of trust that you need to kind of just walk through life with no cares in the world. I said it in my journal entry. I don't watch the news. You know
Yeah.
why? Because I don't want to know about everybody else's problems. I'm dealing with and fixing my own,
Right.
right? And I'm building a relationship with myself. I'm building it back with love, with trust, with, honesty. Like, I'm doing that for myself, so I don't have time to kind of listen to anybody else's rants and whatever else they have kind of going on in their lives. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I am a good friend. Like, I will
Yeah.
ask, the questions. I will be a good listener. Um, and that's something that I kind of feel like also trust helps with, being a good listener. I was thinking about us earlier this week, and I was just like, we've told everybody this podcast came out of a year and a half of us just talking and, getting together and seeing if this is what we wanted to do, and sharing it with other people. I mean, but I think the year and a half also allowed us the time to trust one another, right? I
Mhm.
needed to
Mhm.
get to a place comfortable enough where if I am in mid sentence, I trust that you can finish my sentence for me. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
Yeah.
that's how partnerships work. So, trust is the basis of everything.
Mhm.
Without it, you're not ready. You're not ready for that next step. So, in order to, like I said, get to that next level, you got to go through this season, and
Yeah.
this season's going to be hard, but I promise you it's near the end.
Yeah.
I better, well, first of all, I better be near the end. I've done
Well,
so much.
you brought up a good point earlier of like trust and love, where I feel like in my past relationships, I loved someone before I trusted them. And it
Yeah.
really should be the opposite, but I think it was that way because I did not trust myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I wanted to love. That's all I wanted. I've always just wanted love, and I wanted to experience love and be loved. That's all I have wanted. And I wasn't finding that, right? I was
Hmm.
finding superficial love.
Right.
Um, but was because I was coming from a superficial place. Like I was like, oh,
Yeah.
well, like, yes, I love you. Well, let's fall in love. Let's, do all that without doing the work. I don't have that fear anymore because I've done the work. And I do think everyone was like, well, the work is never done. Yes. And to a sense, there's always some work to be done. But there is a place where I think that you can get to where you're like, I have overcome the worst part of it, right? I've done the
Right.
like really hard grunt work, and now all of my decisions that I'm making for now are leading into my future. I feel more confident in them. I'm not
Yes.
worried about the unknowns because I feel like that I am living in a way that I am proud of, that I love myself, like I genuinely love myself and I trust myself, and that I don't think, that's why I say I think step one to trust is being able to trust yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so you got to do the work, guys. I know it. I know, and I feel like it's such a like trending word, shadow work, do the work, and then you're like, but what does that mean? But it really means getting in touch with yourself, getting in touch with the parts of you. There's no other way for me to say it other than shame and guilt. I feel like those are the two emotions I think that we hold on to that help keep us in our shadow.
Yeah.
And when we can get rid of those things, you don't feel like you have a reason to hide anything about you. When you don't have to hide, which is really for me why this podcast was so important. I have been called to tell my story for so long, but I was scared. I didn't trust that people would receive it or that people would benefit from it or that people wouldn't judge me. Now, I don't care. I don't care if someone judged me by something that I had said on this podcast because I know that there are people who can relate to parts of our stories, who need to hear it so that they can get to this place where they also can say, I discovered who I am. I have the self-awareness and the consciousness, and that now I can live a life that I am trusting that is going to unfold to my highest and greatest good.
Right. Yep. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think so many people will get to this point and be like, like me, like that's how I feel. Like I take that long sigh of relief being in this season of trust because it is so like just I mean, we all grow up, with religion or if you are in the church or whatever, you have a belief, built in you of what God looks like or the miracles and the stories of the Bible and you believe all of that. You actually believe it. Like you wasn't there, right? But you believe it. And so that's the belief that you need to have in yourself. You need to know like deep down inside of me, right? Through your DNA, chromosomic, micro, whatever, like there is etched in you your history, like your everything that you believed in past lives, because I do believe in past lives and
Mhm.
reincarnation, like everything that has, followed you up into this life that I'm sitting in right now, I hold all of that with me. And I believe that, I have to work through some of those things that, my ancestors or, my old self had to go through. I have to work through that. But I also have to trust like that I can push through it too. Like I'm going to get through it. I'm not going to be stuck in that space. That's hard, but again, it feels so good when you get to this place and you're just like, oh, okay. I'm just going to be easy. I'm a lay back and let the universe tell me when it's time for me to get that promotion, right? Like I said, I no longer get mad. If I don't get something that I've worked hard for, I don't get mad. I'm like, "Oh my
Well, it
goodness,
means that there
okay."
wasn't divine timing, right? And that's
Right.
ultimately what you want. You want everything to be in divine timing for you.
Yeah.
So I understand in you saying like you don't get mad because I actually feel that same way too, where I'm like, oh, okay, well, it wasn't meant for me, not at this
It
very
wasn't meant
moment,
for
not at
me,
this time.
right?
And that's okay because I can
Yeah.
trust and know that I am provided for and I'm taken care of by the universe, by my
God's
God.
got me.
So I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that for us. When I had that dream that I was telling y'all about in my journal, I remember telling you this dream when I woke up that
Hmm.
morning,
Hmm.
and you're the one that told me, no, this is God telling you that He's got you. And in that moment, I broke down. Remember?
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
was just like, I broke
The
down.
ugly cry, right?
Correct. But that's again, that was my breakthrough, right? I was
Hmm.
like, "Oh, now I get it," you know? So it's like you're gonna have these moments, you're gonna have these dreams or instincts that are just gonna be like, well, that was interesting. I wonder what that meant. Follow through with that. Talk it through with, your best friend or someone that you feel, can hold those things. They're not secrets, but just hold those things dear to them and give you guidance and help you walk this journey with them. And that's what we set out to do with this podcast. We just wanted to find a tribe, find our community of people who kind of have these same dreams and same aspirations for a next level of whatever that looks like. And I want our community to trust us. I
Mhm.
want to be able to trust more people. I feel like my circle is very small. And if you're in it, ooh, I trust you,
Right, right,
but I would like, because it's that humanness in all of us that we need. We all need each other. Like at the
right.
end of the day, we cannot survive without each other. And so that human effectiveness that we all just kind of need to go on to the next level is what kind of helps us get through all of these journeys and testaments and everything. So I want to build, a bigger community of trustworthy people.
Well, I think the part about having your tribe is so important and how it started with just the two of us. You helped me build my muscle for trust too. Like just your example of saying, of you telling me the dream, and my response was, girl, actually, what I heard when you told me that dream was this. That is not something that I would have done with confidence prior to this relationship that I have built with
Mm,
you, just because you have helped be my confirmation.
yeah.
So before, because I was doing this completely solo dolo, I didn't have anybody to bounce these ideas off. I didn't have
Yeah.
anyone to be like, well, girl, that's what you asked for, remember? Because I wasn't recalling all of those things.
Hmm.
So it has made me sharper in my intuition. So when you told me that story, and then I heard in my higher self voice say, that was God saying, I got you. I trusted that and relayed that to you because this has happened so many times before where someone is telling me something and I've heard something completely different,
Yeah.
but I've been scared to say, actually, I think it might mean this or that you should do that because I did not trust my own inner voice because I did not
Hmm.
trust myself.
Yeah.
And so as I've trusted myself, I have been able to trust my inner voice. I've been able to trust God. I've been able to trust others. And then I am able to trust everything in my life,
Yeah.
which is my
Absolutely.
tribe. And I hope now we're episode 7. At this point, I really hope we have started to build a tribe of people who are coming back to listen to episode after episode because you are finding it to be one, trustworthy, that you can trust that we're saying, because all we're doing is sharing our personal stories. I'm
Right.
not saying that this is how it's gonna happen exactly for you. I'm just trying to give you a roadmap to what may happen, what it might look like, and what you might have to do in order to get to your own self-discovery and to be
Hmm.
able to trust. Because I promise you guys, trust and faith, like I say, go hand in hand, which are opposite of fear. They make life golden. They make life seem so much easier when you can trust and know that no matter what, things are always working out for your highest and greatest good.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, okay, I talked about a book from Iyanla Vanzant called Trust, which is absolutely amazing. Please pick it up and read it. Do you have a song for us?
I have a song for you guys. And this is a song that you shared with me before, but we haven't told everybody else about it. But everybody, this is such a classic song. Everybody knows it. And it is Optimistic by Sounds of Blackness.
I
And
can hear it already.
right? I love it. But here's the thing, because after I, listened to the song and I was like, "Ooh, this is great for our episode." I went and searched up the word optimistic just so I would be clear, right? Let me just be clear. But optimism is about hope for,
Mhm.
a better future or a better outcome. Trust, it's not the same, but it is, for me, it is on the same vibration, right? Like, it's on the same wavelength, because hoping that something happens, that will, is great, but knowing, trusting
that something happens is even better. They go hand in hand, but I feel like optimism will get you started on your trusting journey, like your all encompassing trusting journey.
Well, you're so right though, because when you can trust a situation, even if it looks bad, even if you feel like this is the opposition, this is no way that this is benefit me, if you know how to trust and be optimistic, you know that regardless of what outpicturing may seem or what it may look like, you still know that it is still working out for your greatest and highest good, which is my favorite thing to say ever. Everything works out for my greatest and highest good.
I love it.
I trust that you have found this episode rewarding. I trust that you will be here next week for episode 8, which is all about being present, which is incredibly important.
Yes.
We love you, and we will see you next week. Peace, y'all. Until next time, get in here, get in here, get in here.